I'll start the recording now. Everything said from now on can and will be used against you in court. Hello and welcome to this episode of Also Interesting. My name is Ali Hekalife and this episode will entirely be in English because joining me today is a creative from the United States. He is many things. He is a farmer. He is creator, podcaster, engineer, excavator operator. He's a father. He organizes one of the biggest Maker Faire conventions in the world. William Osman, thank you for joining the show today.
Hello. Yeah, I don't speak German. I'm sorry.
No problem. Of all the different hats I just named, what is the hat you're wearing most of the time?
Probably. Oh, geez. That's a great question. It's hard to tell. Everything sort of blends together. Everything, from farm. I would say the farming is probably the hat I wear the least. We'll go in that direction. Because it's, it's not super important for the farm to be as good as possible. And there's so many other, when I was in school, I took 2 math classes at the same time, and that sounds impressive until you learn that I failed both of them.
I mean, in engineering, mathematics is helpful, but most of the time optional. You'll try and find out.
Yeah. So I had this, strategy in school where I would choose what thing to ignore. And if I knew I was going to fail a class, which only happened a couple of times, and that was like early on, you would just walk away from it. And so, it's like a balance of like, they say C's get degrees. I don't know if they say that. I say that. You don't need A's to graduate and get a job. And so it's kind of silly, I think, to, do everything perfectly. And so in my life now, the thing that I just have to, do well enough on is farming. So that's probably the hat that I wear the least. We spend maybe a couple hours of a week. And like, I wish I could spend more time on it, but I can't. A lot of time is spent for open source. So the maker, convention side of things is a ton of resources because it's a lot of money and pressure and communicating with people, whether that's brands or other YouTubers. It's one event expands into hundreds, if not thousands of things and relationships.
Over here in Germany, we have the Chaos Computer Club, and there's a yearly congress, and it's mostly run by volunteers. And there's the proverb saying that the organization for the next congress starts with the last day of the current running congress. So you're already up to the elbow in the next open source?
Yep. Like people don't realize it, but once the event ends, it is, we pre-sell tickets for the next year's event because that's how we pay the bills. It's how we pay for our down payments. Like we owe money to venues and rentals and whatnot so that we can lock in the date. And, any relationship that we have with a sponsor, big companies work like 6 months, 8 months in advance. Like they'll lock in next year's budgets, towards the end of the previous year. And so if you come in and talk to, I don't know, let's pick an example. Let's say you want to work with, American Airlines or, some big company. And you're like, we would like to do a sponsorship with you. Our event is in 2 months. They'll say, no way, we can't do that. Or they can do something really, really small with their sort of, slush fund. But, these big companies have to operate like a year in advance or even longer with their finances. And so you have to plan way farther ahead than people are even thinking about the next year's event. Like if you come to Open Sauce and you're like, wow, that was great. Once it's over, we're sitting there thinking like, oh, we need to start conversations for next year. People aren't even thinking about next year.
So in another interview, you said it's reaching the 7 figures right now, what you're spending for open source. How many shoulders are carrying open source? Is it mainly you, or do you have a team to organize the event?
I would say the core of the team is Well, it depends. So it changes throughout the year, right? Like the year-round size of the team is about, 2 people are like the main organizers, not including myself. And then we have, some staff below that are doing, artwork and film and video production stuff. And so the core of the event is genuinely organized by 2 people, not including myself.
Sorry to say, but that sounds mental.
It's insane, yeah. But it's the only way you can do it because everything's so expensive that you can't have, like that many year-round staff working on this. And so what happens is we pull people in as you get closer. So there's like a, kind of a work back schedule where at the event itself, there's hundreds of employees, right? You've got all sorts of people doing all sorts of things, but you've only hired them for like a couple of days. And then leading up to the event, like a couple of weeks out, you've got maybe, tens of people that you're employing. And then when you go a couple months out, it's like maybe half a dozen, but then those people are working on other things as well. Like, we have an editor, we have, videographer, cameraman, John, and they work on stuff for my second channel. They work on stuff for Open Sauce. They work on stuff for Sauce Plus. Like they're doing everything to kind of, disperse the costs of everything.
Is cameraman John still the one and only cameraman John, or did it become kind of a position? Okay.
No, it's John. John is John.
Not replaced by another cameraman John?
Nope.
I started watching your videos when it was you and John and a garage full of crazy ideas and shitty robots. And it weirdly developed. Just today, I talked with a friend about the time when your house burned down and before that, your laser cutter videos and what changed from then to now. Back then, all these machinery, 3D printers, laser cutters, CNC, it was all kind of a hobby in itself, like building the tools. Yeah. And now we're in an era where most of these tools are perfected, that you can buy them for a smaller budget. And it feels like we lost the craft of being able to manipulate your own equipment.
Yeah, I think that is, I think that's just something that was bound to happen. I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. It maybe is a sad thing, but I really hated my first 3D printer.
Yeah, but
I called it Pleasure Bot because it caused me so much pain.
Yeah, but to hate it, you first have to love it, honestly.
Well, I liked the idea of 3D printing, but
yes.
Then you go to start a print and it doesn't stick. And so you stop it and then you start it again, restart it, and then it doesn't stick. And then you realize what's happening is because the whole damn thing is made out of wood, when it gets hot, it starts warping. And so the Z offset, there was no bed leveling. You had to do it yourself. And it was not even by leveling. You would just do like a manual Z offset. You just like turn it down. No, I think I would have to, it was awful and I don't miss it. And I didn't 3D print. And so when I made the laser cutter, I found it on Facebook Marketplace, I think, or Craigslist. Some guy was selling his like half finished laser cutter kit. And so I went and bought all the parts. He like hadn't built any of it. And I put it together. Well, I say I put it together. It really was not, I wouldn't say it was even a kit. It was kind of just like somebody had ordered a bunch of parts. And so I still had to like build the laser cutter.
It was the idea of a laser cutter.
It was the idea of a laser cutter. There was like, it wasn't like there were instructions or anything. It was just kind of like, okay, well, you buy a tube, you buy a power supply, you buy a bunch of, the 80/20 aluminum extrusion. I think that there was like a controller, but it was like one that I didn't want to use. And so I ended up buying a different like open source controller. And so I kind of just like basically built the whole thing from scratch. And I used it and it worked, and it was kind of a pain in the ass, but like it still just worked. and I couldn't use like the back right corner of it because the optics were like not well enough aligned. Like there was too much warping going on, and so the beam wouldn't make it to the last mirror if it was in the back right corner, because the laser sort of bounces like from the back down the left side and then back, on to the wherever the cutting head is. And I was like, fine, I don't really need to cut in that back corner anyways. I don't need to cut stuff that big, and if I did, I would just sort of like cut in that same spot over and over again. And it was like still more functional than the 3D printer. But once I ended up getting, I think a Prusa Mark III was the first printer I bought. I think I bought one. God, I don't remember. Maybe Michael bought one. I don't remember. God, I cannot remember when I ended up with a 3D printer that actually worked. That was like, wow, okay, well, this is sick. I'm just going to do this. Like, it actually works. You can make a part and it just prints.
I still somehow miss the days of Retina Smelter 9000.
I know. I do too. I think that, the change is important in, online. Like if you just do the same thing over and over again, it gets kind of stale. And so like I for the longest time always had the intention to go back, like build another laser cutter and kind of go back to that. But, eventually realized that, it's better to just go forwards and come up with new things and not like try to relive stuff. Because I didn't make the laser cutter specifically for that. It was just a thing I had done. I had made the laser cutter because I wanted to cut stuff on a laser. And so just like trying to get back to that would have, I think, felt sort of artificial, because I didn't really need a laser cutter. We had figured out other stuff in that time frame to, make projects and videos.
I still remember the Vin Diesel head you cut it out of meat.
Mm-hmm.
And
that was such a absurd idea. That was a comment too. Somebody left a comment and I was just like, that's awesome. What a fucking stupid idea.
It's the perfect blend of crafting and art and stupidity.
Yeah, and I love those kinds of things. And it's to me it's a little bit like of a kind of dead art now. Like YouTube and the internet is very saturated with science and engineering content. Like there still is a market for it, but it's hard to make things that, what I've noticed is things that I think are interesting are not always things that people want to click on and watch. And so there's sort of like this sweet spot of when you're trying to think of, what kind of a project to do to make a video about, like thinking about how you can, how you're going to present it to a potential viewer with the title and thumbnail. And so, I definitely miss a little bit of the older days of just having a weird idea and doing it. And now there's like a bit more pressure to, maintain video performance. And, there's like a lot of people talk about this. I think Veritasium just posted a video about potential retirement where he talks about, video performance being tied to your self-worth. And so it's like a little bit of an unhealthy feedback loop. And so it sort of drives you to not just pick things that you think are interesting, but pick things that you think people will click on.
And if you decide not to do that, so I deliberately don't do clickbait titles, and all the time I know things would click better with some clickbait, but I want to be part of the internet where the title is what you get and not what could potentially be an outrage. And when you said you're thinking about things like titles and so on in advance, how much scripting is done in advance nowadays? Because your old videos, they remembered me of just tinkering around with friends, in my case in hackerspace, and looking that there's some guy at the other end of the world doing similar things with cameraman John, and they're just going for it, building a shitty robot, developing a shitty idea. I would say last video in the style was building your own X-ray machine. So things get crazy, but how scripted are they nowadays?
I wouldn't say scripted, but they're kind of like written while filmed. So it's, you have to start a video, you have to explain to people, what you're doing and why you're doing it, so they understand your motivations, because you can't just do something. You have to have a problem. And so that's usually the hardest part of storytelling, is convincing them why the problem is an interesting one for them to watch be solved. And so that a lot of times is like kind of is scripted of like figuring out how to word that, how to be concise. Like, you know, we used to just completely wing it, and we still do that on the second channel, but there's still like some structure involved. And so the most scripted part of the whole thing is like the beginning, and then the structure of like, well, I know I want to get here, and I know that I need to like show this and show that. And so while filming, it's kind of like, I would say, any of the main channel videos I've done in like the past several, you know, I don't know how many years have been like an unhealthy process where you film and then edit and then film and edit, and you kind of work your way forward. Michael Reeves does the same thing. And you're kind of deciding in the video that's being edited what needs to come next. And you're just like, oh, I kind of spent enough time on this. Like, people just want to see something happen. There's not a lot of scripting, I would say. Not basically, it's almost, you know, not scripted at all.
Mm. When you're doing things like building an X-ray machine in your garage, I think that you, besides being the funny, goofy guy on the internet, you care about your own safety. So I'm pretty sure that there are safety precautions the viewer can't see in the video, but you're taking while it's building your machines. At least I hope so.
I mean, it's calculated risk, right? Like, do you ever drive a car?
No, I have low vision. I'm not allowed to drive a car.
Oh, well, so it'd be super dangerous if you drove a car.
But no license.
But you've driven in a car.
So, yeah, I did.
I think they say like driving in a car is like the most dangerous thing you can do statistically.
Probably, besides some fun sports like motorbikes, kayaking or something.
Yeah, but I think they say like of all the things that like people regularly do and or it's kind of like a mandatory thing you have to do. Like, you kind of have to drive, at least, you know, in America. Mm. It's like the most dangerous thing that your average person like regularly does. And so, well, we still do it. We still decide it's worth it. And so I think like from a safety standpoint, it's not necessarily like what are all the safety precautions, like that still is, you know, like I still think about it a lot, but like there's also a some amount of like risk tolerance. Like, I know that this is bad, but it's not that bad. You know, like getting on an airplane exposes you to a lot of ionizing radiation in the same way that like an X-ray does. So like, is it good for you? No. Is it a disaster? No. The high voltage is probably the most dangerous part, but it's just don't touch it. Just stay away from it. You know, like if it falls, it falls. If like you just, you know, you have PPE, you know, to the extent that's, you know, reasonable for the situation, and then whatever happens and you just don't interfere. Like a lot of accidents I think come from people trying to interfere, try to save something, like, oh, a thing is falling and I'm going to catch it, and then, you know, you end up making things worse, if that makes any sense. And so there's kind of like, you know, you set the stage, and then if something goes wrong, you just, you know, walk away from it and unplug it.
There are some of these basic safety rules I often repeat, but I mean, how often have I said never grab a falling knife and still try to grab a falling knife? So there's some reflexes behind trying to avoid things that are potentially more dangerous if you try to interfere.
The thing that scares me the most is actually just basically bombs, like any sort of, even like small explosives like fireworks and stuff. Like, that makes me the most nervous because it's so fast. Like, at least with, you know, high voltage or any of this stuff, you have, you know, some control over it. But anything that uses, you know, any kind of explosive charges just makes me very uncomfortable.
So there's some basic rules you mentioned in other episodes, like having cheap eye protection everywhere, wearing glasses and so on, that aren't that visible in the videos. But based on your experience working with power tools, would you say you're safe during your recordings?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think the most hurt I've ever gotten was when I jumped on a table trying to break it for a video where we were doing Hollywood stunt stuff that Universal Studios paid us to do, like sponsorship, which is hilarious, right? Like all this dangerous tools and whatnot, and then me just jumping on a table trying to break it is like what hurt me the most.
But maybe not what the audience would expect to be the most dangerous part.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like that's the kind of, like that's the thing that actually has caused me like the most physical pain and like longest recovery of like, you know, a couple of months of like just twerking my ankle.
Talking about cars and the risk of driving them, there's one of your videos in my playlist for bad days that will always bring a smile. And I can imagine you know what I'm talking about, the illegal cars. How many parts can you remove and still keep it legal video? I think it's a special kind of art, making something so long, so entertaining.
Yeah, I love videos like that. It's a lot of work to get, you know, all these people together to do, but it's so absurd and stupid, and everyone has so much fun, and like it doesn't really matter. And I remember that one, like I was researching, you know, the legality of an awful, horrible car, and I was thinking to myself, like, okay, you've seen like a car on the road that like maybe shouldn't be on the road at some point in your life. Like everyone's seen that, right? And then I was thinking, okay, well, like
not in Germany, but yes, like,
really,
we have very strict limitations what's legal and what's not on your car.
But what is legal? Like, is it okay if
there's
like
a huge standard what your car has to fulfill? So when you just started making cracks in your cars, they would not be street legal in Germany anymore. So the tolerance over here, we have a certain pride in our cars, but the tolerance is very, very small.
That's funny because it's like it might actually be like more environmentally friendly to have looser tolerances because it's like, okay, well now I just have to throw this car away and buy another one.
But
I mean, I've seen cars here that are like falling apart. I saw a YouTube video, like a news article of this guy whose truck was like shaped like the letter V. Like the bed went up and the cab went down. It was just like, how did that even happen? And so I was like researching, like, well, how bad could the car be? And like, who tells you that you can't drive it anymore, right? Like if you got in a crash and your car still drives, like, is someone gonna tell you that you can't drive it anymore? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, when does that happen? And so, you know, even in Germany, I feel like if your car got really messed up, like, is a police officer just gonna like pull you over and say you can't drive, or they're gonna say like you have to go get it inspected?
You have yearly inspections, and they will check literally everything.
Yeah, so that's if you did get your car inspected and then you destroy it, you have like you know, a year minus 1 day to drive it around. You see what I'm saying? Like, or some like when, like at what point in Germany will like a cop pull you over and say like, hey, your car has no roof and no doors and 3 wheels and like no windshield, like you can't do that.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, first of all that, and there's the part where the German authorities will just walk around, browse the streets, and if your car has things like just a cloudy mirror, not even broken, just the glass gets cloudy and it's not that visible anymore, they can legally stop your car from being street legal with adding a sticker, and then you have to get it fixed before you are allowed to drive it on. And I mean, for the American mind, it's not comprehensible, but in Germany it's quite common actually that the authorities will lock down your car, or if you don't have the right insurance on your car, you aren't allowed to drive it.
That makes sense.
In the freedom country, you would just pay for whatever damage you inflict, I guess.
Right. Well, it turns out from my research that you needed like, I think your tail lights. You need like 2 taillights. You needed 2 rear view mirrors, I think. So I think you needed like 1 mirror on the side and 1 mirror on the windshield. I don't remember if you needed a windshield or not. I can't remember what that was.
I think in the video you said that they shouldn't crack the windshield, but I'm not sure if that's a legal binding situation.
Yeah, I think it wasn't necessary. You definitely don't need doors. Like you could really, like, if we had more time, because we rented that parking lot for like a day, I would have loved to really like truly strip the car down to like almost nothing. But you know, it's what the video is not really about that. It's more just like the shit show. All of those things. But like when we bought the cars, like I specifically bought a car that was front wheel drive so that we could cut it in half.
And then you presented it to one of California's biggest car entrepreneurs.
Yeah. So like when Alan, because that was Alan's car. I think ours was the I think they're probably both front wheel drive, but I like specifically, we made sure that it would be easy to cut it in half and still work. And so we gave, like, Alan knew that's what I was going for. And so we left and I was like, all right, cut it in half.
It's, as I said, it's one of the videos in my all-time favorite playlist because it always brings joy. And
that's good to hear.
It's a short playlist, to be honest, but all of them are jams. The other one is the Linus getting roasted by his colleagues and staff video, which is the best roast in the internet. And coming back to freedom in the United States, I would say freedom units are a safety hazard. Would you agree?
I mean, I think there's a lot of safety hazards. You mean like metric is better?
Imperial units are made to hurt you at one point in your life.
I think they're bad. I think it's fine. Like unless you're doing like actual engineering, then it becomes a problem. My favorite example of freedom units is pound force versus pound mass, which is just like psychotic. It's what non-freedom units call newtons versus kilograms, or newtons and grams, right? Is like grams, kilograms is mass, and newtons is force. Pounds mass is mass, pounds force is force. But pounds force on Earth is the same as pounds mass on Earth, because pounds force is what we measure the mass of things with on Earth, not pounds mass, even though we're actually measuring pounds mass. And so everyone thinks pounds mass is pounds force, but then when you go onto a different place that doesn't have our gravity, all of a sudden pounds mass and pounds force are different, and then everything breaks and everyone's scratching their head thinking what happened. And all they had to do was just give it two different names, like grams and newtons.
Americans often argue that feet are more intuitive in a smaller scale.
No,
so you could easily visualize 5 feet long stick instead of 1.5 meters or so. But the only place where, even in Europe, we use feet is in aviation. And you can't imagine 3,000 feet stacked up on top of each other.
Yeah.
So I didn't know I think there are only 2 countries besides the United States using the freedom units. And it's Liberia, because it was sometimes back then a United States colony, and Malaysia or something. But literally all over the world, they joined the metric system for easy reasons. And now you have things like, it's just a 3/4 of a thumb, whatever. And
no, it's dumb. And like anyone that tries to argue against metric, saying pro freedom units, is an idiot. Like, you could, like, quantifiably, you can just sort of call them an idiot, because it, like, when you if you're arguing for it, it means that you don't actually use them and you're just familiar. Like, your kind of intuition is based around these units that you've grown up with, and so it's like, oh, it's going to be hot today, it's 80 degrees. Like, that's fine, but that doesn't mean it's better. Like, just because you're familiar with it doesn't mean it's better. And a lot of people will fight for that. And the reality is, like, anytime I do any sort of engineering, I will very quickly, depending on the complexity, try to just convert everything to metric. And then do the math. Like,
when you're saying 80 degrees Fahrenheit is completely unintuitive to me, because everybody almost every day works in somewhere with water. You boil water, you freeze water, making that your operational scale. From 0 degrees Celsius, water freezes, 100 degrees, water boils. That's something intuitively I can wrap my head around. But the freedom units around Fahrenheit, I don't get it.
Yeah, it's silly. Like, it's kind of just, it is what it is.
But who are we to argue? I mean, in the Bible, they use feet and not meters, so fool on us. But
Yeah. All that I like about it is just there's, kind of more explicit difference in the, pounds and mass. Sorry, force and mass. But it's just the conversions. Like being able to move between units is much easier than in freedom units. Like going from, like pounds and tons, and it's a mess. It's like a total disaster, being able to use kilograms. I'm not even sure. I don't think I've ever seen anyone use megagrams. That would be sick though. But like, it just makes sense. Like you end up with these really, really easy conversions, and I don't know. It's like that becomes intuitive. Like the sort of base 10 becomes intuitive. You can just start moving the decimal point around, and that intuition is more valuable to me than like the intuition about temperature.
From that day on, I will start using megagram and gigagram.
Gigagrams. Does anyone ever use megagrams?
I'm pretty sure you just use a ton as a unit. So the metric ton is 1,000 kilograms, which is...
See, what is a US ton is like 2,200. No, it is 2,000 pounds. Wait, a metric ton's 1,000 kilograms?
Yes, a metric ton is 1,000 kilograms.
That makes sense. Why is a freedom ton 2,000 pounds?
Because it's more.
Oh, actually, you know what it is? It's because it's closer to the metric ton. Metric ton is like 900 kilograms. Or sorry, the US ton is 907 kilograms.
I think
and so they probably picked 2,000 pounds to get it closer to the same, but that actually just makes it more confusing.
Honestly, I can't wrap my head around the fact that all the tech Europe uses, from the iPhones, all the social medias, the large language models, it's all invented in the United States, but you can't even have easy measuring units.
I think the problem is like the United States has like a lot of really smart people, but it has even more stupid people. And those stupid people really love Fahrenheit and feet, and you can't convince them that metric is better because they're not smart enough to actually use measurements and math. Like I think like if that makes any sense at all, you're attacking their preference to seeing temperature in Fahrenheit. You're not attacking their preference to do math with freedom units because they're not doing math with freedom units. And so they look at you and they say, well, why would you want to do temperature in Celsius when we do it like this? And it's like, I don't want to do temperature in Celsius. I want to do math with tens.
Somebody asked me unironically if I'm a spy for the government because I'm talking to him in his language and my phone is in military time. And it's just, I can't imagine that a country where you're legally allowed to homeschool your kids and give them guns from whatever age they can carry them is anyhow functional. But actually, it seems to be.
It mostly works. Sometimes it doesn't work.
Well, talking about things that mostly work but sometimes doesn't work. What's the story behind you and Gov deals?
That's a good question. I have no idea how I stumbled into Gov deals. Someone must have told me about it. And then I realized that I live in like a pretty hot spot for Gov deals. Like every time we go out of state, I'm like, I always just peep at Gov deals around wherever we are. And it's never as good as here. And so it turns out that like you can get a lot of like actually good stuff and not a lot of people will compete for it. And so it has become like an actual valuable resource for accumulating tools. The only problem is it's become a invaluable resource for accumulating shit you don't need. And I need to like draw the line in the sand somewhere. The problem though is like the Gov deal stuff, it like works well in YouTube videos for titles and thumbnails. And it's like, if you're just sort of farming or doing the same thing over and over again on the second channel. Like, even though it's like a continuous narrative and you're making progress, conceptually the title and thumbnail is like the same, and people just like don't click on it. And if it's the same, like, you need some core concept that's new and interesting. And so the Gov deal sort of just provides like really good, you know, kind of unique narratives to help describe the video in a way that people will click on. And so it's become a bit of like a tool for me on the second channel. So unfortunately, I just get to keep buying shit I don't need. I honestly, it's like gambling. I think there's something about it that I would say a little unhealthy, but it's so cheap. Like, the real price is the space that stuff you buy takes up.
The real Gov deals are the friends we made along the way.
I mean, yeah, basically that's how I feel. We're constantly looking at different like auction websites. So like Kevin looks at other ones that are more like, I don't even know what the hell they are, but like more maybe military stuff where there's just like weird like laser equipment and things like that. And so we always are just like sharing the kind of batshit insane finds.
Have you discovered who the fabulous man on your almost 400-year-old painting is?
No, not yet, but I definitely have plans to try to scan it or like do like a collage. I think somebody was recommending a collage, and I want to try to make like a 3D model. So like do like a normal map of it as well, and make like a just really like high resolution, like I don't really know, open source is the right word, but basically just like make this, you know, piece of data that people can just use however they want. And I'm sure along the way somebody will figure out who the person is.
I can't wait for the art print t-shirts with him.
Yes, I didn't paint this.
Speaking about t-shirts, you're a fashion designer and fashion icon with Cat Warehouse. And
yeah,
I still believe that I convinced you over to this interview by sharing a picture of me wearing one of your cat ties. But Cat Warehouse, it seems like a joke at first sight with inbred cats, but it's serious business, right?
I mean, define serious business.
Making real money, paying real taxes, having a real income.
I would say making real money and then paying all that real money in taxes and wages. Cat Warehouse definitely makes me negative money.
So open source makes negative money. Cat Warehouse makes negative money.
There's things to think about here.
Well,
I think about them all the time.
I can imagine that. I mean, sure, your YouTube career is making you some money, even after the video where you screamed at Susan, the back then CEO of YouTube, and you didn't get demonetized for all eternal. But so I can understand that for open source, you have to pay in advance to establish something, make it happen, make it bigger, and make it a real convention. But I thought that Cat Warehouse somehow would subsidize it in any way.
No, the reason, we tried, oh God, it's so complicated. Like, it's actually, what I've learned recently, this is maybe like a great tip or trick or an industry secret for anyone who's trying to live their life and make money, is it turns out that if you run a business, you kind of just want to do the thing that the business is good at every single day. And so if you're selling, merchandise and making YouTube videos and running an event, it's a lot of different hats to wear. And a merchandising business, that's not like selling merchandise every single day. I mean, it did passively, but I'm talking like bigger scale, like you're making designs, you're uploading them, you're marketing them. Like, it kind of needs to be like a full-time business that just does one thing. That's, I think, a lot of times how the most successful businesses become successful. Mm-hmm. And so for me, the thing that I'm the best at that can actually pay my bills plus is just making videos. And so trying to run Cat Warehouse as kind of our own business, when we were, doing our own manufacturing and our own design, it kind of just, it's a little bit too complicated, and there's too much logistics, and you have all these kind of business nightmares that you incur, and you're incurring them at the same scale that an organization that sells way more merchandise does at the same size. Like you're if that makes any sense, like you're incurring the problem. It's like almost like a startup cost or like an operating cost. Like you're paying the same operating cost. And so it turns out like what I'll end up going back to, and hopefully it'll make it so that Cat Warehouse can pay some bills, is a fulfillment company, something like a DFTBA or LTT is doing, merchandise with creators, yes. I think at some point in the future. And so they then have to deal with all those problems, like the sales tax and whatnot. Because like what happens in America, which is awesome, and I'm saying that really sarcastically, is like every state wants a piece of the sales tax, which is fine, right? Like if somebody in Illinois...
What? If you're selling from state to state, both states will get... Where's the freedom in that?
There is no freedom in that. And not only is there not freedom in that, it's actually, I would rather just pay the federal, like I'd rather pay one person more money than the problem that incurs. You have to pay like 50 states. It's insane. Like it actually becomes like prohibitively complicated, where you like, there are ways to do it. Like it's not impossible, but if you want to sell stuff, all of a sudden you now have to like pay sales tax to more than just the state that you're living in, and there's 50 of those states, and like some of them don't do sales tax, but a lot of them do.
That sounds like regulatory capture to me.
Exactly. Like it just makes it too complicated. And so it makes a lot more sense to just work with, a fulfillment company. It's like, that's what I'll go back to doing. Like it was fun to, do our own manufacturing and, make some custom garments and whatnot, but it just ends up being too complicated and too expensive. And like, unfortunately, unless you're like a really big brand that can sell a lot of stuff, like LTT, they sell a lot of stuff. It just ends up being like inefficient to the point where it's not worth it. Like it's more like art than it is, merchandise. And so it's not, it is what it is. Like kind of the same thing with open source is it's such a big endeavor that like I can't really exhibit anything. Like I can't really put a bunch of effort into doing something really cool at open source, because it turns out that like my job is to just make the venue,
which is in itself very cool.
Yeah. I enjoy it, but also it's like, oh man, I would want to, like, I have ideas of things I want to do. And then it just actually ends up making, my life more difficult every year when we come into the event. And I'm like, maybe I should just run the event and like, don't try to have any bigger ambitions.
I remember quite vividly the video where you introduced your embroidering machine, because there's something to acquiring new skill, new machine, a new hobby in some kind of way that I, as a fellow nerd, really understand, that you can read all night in the documentations. And I mean, embroidering machines, they start being fun at the smallest industrial level. All the hobby made stuff is bullshit. You have to go big, and in the big industry, small. But there's the perfect sweet spot. And I'm always confused if people don't get why that's fascinating. And they're asking me when I'm talking about embroidering machines if I'm working in this field or if I intend to work in that. I always say, no, of course not.
That'd be awful. I think embroidery would be like one of the worst jobs ever.
I mean, look at it. It's making thousands of nuts every second. That's awesome. That doesn't need any more justification for me. And how is your embroidering machine doing?
It's great. The internal battery died, so every time I turn it off, it's memory resets, but that's okay. It has what the hell is the memory? The old memory card, PCI. I don't even remember. There's like some old memory card that's like the size of like a long credit card, and then I have an adapter like that goes from that to a CF card, and then I think. Yeah, the CF card is like the final card. I have an adapter to go to like an SD card too. So I was like, could potentially like stack 3 adapters. But like, long story short, it turns out that when you buy like a modern CF card, they're like 2 gigabytes. or no, they're more than 2 gigabytes. And I was like, it just wasn't working. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And then I was thinking to myself, like looking on Amazon, like, wait, they sell CF cards that are like, these memory cards that are like 250 megabytes or 15 megabytes. And I'm like, there's got to be a reason. And so I remembered at some point I had like a similar situation where like it didn't work, and it was like, oh, I needed a smaller memory card because the like device couldn't handle the like address size of the larger memory stick. And so, you know, I figured out, I was like, oh, I just can format the card and like lie to it and say that you're a smaller card than you actually are. And that works. And so like the whole machine, basically it like just works, and I've had to adjust the timing a couple of times. But I have like a big, like, this is sort of my, I think, favorite use for LLMs is to just, I took all my documentation that I had, like all the manuals, all the part manual, and I shoved it into a ChatGPT project. And it makes it really easy to diagnose issues, or I can just say like, hey, here's a problem I'm having. Like, what page of the manual does it describe this problem? And it makes it like very fast to try and diagnose and fix things on a piece of equipment that like I don't really know that much about. And there's like a shit ton of parts and a lot of like little bits and bobs.
There's the useful way to introduce LLMs to your workflow. And then you could use Grok and say, undress the embroidering machine for me.
I've heard about that. I haven't seen any. Is that like that's crazy to me.
Actually, that's the only thing happening on X right now. And it's, see, I left it for personal use and for fun years ago. And now every time I open it, it's so right wing is not even a word for it. It's more like all the groypers and so on, they got their own social media. Compared to that, True Social is a Vogue social media. It got really unusable. And now you can address everybody. And if you try to sue them for that, so I know some people personally who aren't on X, but their pictures got stolen and they got undressed via Grok, and they tried to sue. And in Germany, there is an office. Every time you text them, they will just send an email with a poop emoji to you. So
really,
it's so childish. Elon Musk is the biggest man-child on the planet.
Yeah, I stopped using Twitter a long time ago. It just like showed like way too much porn, and I was like, this is weird. And so then I stopped using it. And
now there are a lot of OnlyFans models who are just implying that Grok undressed them to sell their own stuff, which is kind of creative, but very sad that that's what Twitter is nowadays. So I have a future projection for you and most of your cast. If you want, I would like to introduce you briefly.
Yeah.
So, thinking about the future, Kevin will wear a carbon fiber eye patch due to a laser accident. I'm pretty sure that's going to happen. Peter Schrupel crashed the stratospheric aircraft made from cardboard from the stratosphere.
That one I would bet money on.
Styropyro, besides always having his twink look, will start having an eternal sunburn from blowing up a
Did you say twink look?
Did I say that?
That's awesome. I'm going to get him a shirt that says that.
We'll have an eternal sunburn from blowing up a 1 trillion mega amp fuse in his backyard. And I can clearly see that coming true.
Oh yeah, there's t-shirts that say "In my twink era." I'm gonna buy that for.
Alan Pan will break a leg by falling from his mount, a snake with 6 feet tall legs. Potato's college fund will get so big that she will start her own college.
Yeah, no. My guess is it would get so big that she would go to trade school instead, and not use it. She'd become a welder, an underwater welder,
high pressure underwater welder.
Yeah.
So Niall Red will make harmless cleaning products from real meth, and therefore has to hide from the law. Cameraman John will accidentally record a UFO and become the legend in the truther community. And what will happen to William Osman?
He will, probably die in a tractor accident.
In that case, I would just say he will.
He will die. I think about life insurance every day. I'm like,
Well,
man, I should get more life insurance.
Getting into life insurance with your resume could be, let's say, challenging.
We just don't tell them.
Well, there are millions of views on you building your own X-ray, finding out if one can break a real human finger bone in a windshield. So, I mean, if you're not saying something like you're a fashion producer and a farmer, they will look you up and they will find all your robots.
The one thing you never say is you never say that you make YouTube videos. You just say, you describe what the videos are about, but you never say you make videos. So it's like, yeah, I do engineering. I have a small farm. I have this. They'll never ask. The instant you say YouTube, all the alarms start going off. I've heard that so many times from so many creators. They're like, oh, I was looking for like a home insurance policy or this policy or that policy. And then they like, I don't want to say they were honest, but they were maybe like overly honest. And they're like, yeah, this is what I do. And then the insurance just tweaks out. And all they had to say was literally what they do, but not exactly what they do. And they would be totally fine.
So in your case, I would assume most of your audience are adults. I would say you're an adult content creator.
Yes,
and let them figure out the rest.
In the same way that open source is an adult science fair.
Which it is.
Yeah, but everyone thinks it's so much worse when you say it like that. Excuse me? A what science fair? You have my attention.
Well, and then there's a television interview about open source where you're presenting your balls, your meatballs.
Yeah, I love that. God, I still cannot believe that they were totally down with that.
Well, actually, there are many unbelievable stories behind your YouTube channel.
Yeah, I think that my life feels pretty normal to me, but then when I look at it, step back from the bigger picture, I'm like, all right, that's actually insane. I think that I'm living my best life.
That's great to hear. Thank you, William, for joining me today. It was a pleasure interviewing you.
Thanks for having me.
And I will stop the recording.